สวัสดีครับ My name is พัชกิจเกิดลาบ and today in this video I will explain you about the issue of emotional labors. So what is emotional labors? Why the world concerned about it? And why should Thailand concerned about it too? Let's start with the definition of the emotional labors. The term emotional labor was first introduced in 1983 by American sociologist Ali Hochstein. It can be simply defined as an act of hiding or suppressing real emotion as part of work in exchange of money. For example, the waiters are not allowed to show any trace of negative feelings in front of their customer regardless of how abusive the customer can be. Constant emotional suppression can result in mental injury. The psychological injury constituted purely by mental stimulus, such as PTSD. Not only it harm oneself, mental injury are also responsible as most common reason for absenteeism, loss of productivity, and early retirement, this resulting in decrease of potential workers in markets and tremendous increase in medical costs the country has to pay annually. This brings us to another important question: who can be emotional labor? According to Hochstein, those who are emotional labor are workers in service sectors whose job require close interaction with their clients. The list covers a wide range of professions, from waiter to teacher, lawyer, doctors, police officers, and so much more. Over the past 30 decades, the world begin to pay more attention on mental health problems. Therefore, many countries around the world start to take action against the issue of employment mental injury. For example, South Korea had recently amended their Occupational Safety and Health Act back in 2018. The amendment consists of new additional provisions focused on protecting emotional labor against abusive acts of customers. Germany also recognized the mental disorders arise from work as one kind of disability. And since there is no provision under German law which differentiates between mental and physical disability, both of them can enjoy the exact same treatment under the law. In the United States, each state takes different approaches on the mental injury claims. While the claim might be completely compensable in some states, the other might require the further criteria, such as the stress that caused the injury is unusual or caused by the sudden and shocking event. However, the mental injury might not be compensable at all in the others. In the end, it depends on what state you are in. In case of Thailand, there is no provision of law that covers the scope of mental injury. In contrast to Germany, which clearly states that both mental and physical disabled persons shall be treated the same, Thailand did not clarify anything about the status of this kind of injury and leave it to discretion of the court. On one hand, it provides the court with flexibility to determine whether or not the mental injury shall be compensated. But on the other hand, such dependence on court can cause uncertainty in the interpretation of its legal status under Thai law. This ambiguity can be really harmful. Consider that Thailand is facing a serious shortage of workers in market due to the constant growing of aging population over 60 years old. Since Thailand did not have the law to govern the employment injury which is purely mental, it leaves the country defenseless against the issue of emotional labor, which will slowly sow its seed of mental strain in Thai workers. And as a result, Thailand will suffer more loss of its potential workers to the unregulated employment stress. As conclusion, Thailand is not ready to take on a challenge of emotional labor and mental injuries. This is because the current status of Thai law did not have a concrete way to govern this kind of issue. If Thailand is not going to reconsider about revised Thai law and regulation in order to cover the issue of mental injuries, it might be harder for Thailand to fill the labor market, and we as Thailand may have to suffer the consequence. And that is it for today. Thank you for your attention and I hope to see you next time. สวัสดีครับ